Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, G1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. It's been a good one for me. Let's jump right into the show this week. Several things going on that we could discuss, but honestly, my mind's been on another topic as I began reading a new book Monday, and it just kind of has me going over a lot of things in my head about the current state of the world, even though it was written, I think, back in 2014 or something like that. But anyway, one thing I found rather odd was that I was thinking about the situation in Ukraine and how I believe that there is a larger ulterior motive for continuing the conflict beyond what is really logical. I want you to consider something before we get into the main topic of the show today. I have held that for some time. I believe that the ultimate end state of the conflict in Ukraine is to wipe out the majority of the Russian-speaking population, at least, in the country, and as many of the nationalists as possible. Of course, killing as many Russians in the process as they can, it would be a secondary win for the deep state. And that's what I'm talking about here, the deep state keeping this conflict going. In other words, that they do not care if Russia takes the eastern provinces of Ukraine so much as they are primarily concerned with removing as much of the population from the region as possible. Now, why would that be the case? Well, I'm convinced that they want to recreate an ancient empire that was in that region over 1,000 years ago. And they do not want the ethnic population that replaced and supplanted that empire to be there when they do this. They want the land and the resources, but not the people. And after this war is over, the country is going to be a vast wasteland. If you watch these, enough of these videos, you just see mile after mile after mile of nothing. And the settlements and villages and things that are there, the cities, towns, they're just devastated. They're rubble. They'll have to be completely bulldozed after this is all over. And because it's a vast wasteland, somebody's got to pay back all of the loans that Ukraine has taken out. And that's going to mean giving this land to agents of the deep state in some shape, form, or fashion. It will have to be mortgaged off. And the new owners will move in to become the elite of the country, and they will import a new population to backfill the socioeconomic levels for all the people who have left. They will need a lower class worker to exploit all of the resources, so they'll import third world peoples to do that. There's no intent to let the native Ukrainians who fled the country come back to live there when the war is over. And many of them don't want to come back. They've been interviewed and they've said they don't foresee ever going back to that country. Now, I've been thinking this, and then I actually saw a fake tweet that says that Zelensky indicated he would import immigrants after the war. It's got this CNN graphic on it, and it looks legit, but it's not. It's apparently fake, so don't get fooled by it. Somebody posted it on Gab this week. But it is, however, what I believe to be true. I think the fake tweet was done so that the fact checkers could, debunk it. They could pre-debunk it, and deflect people from kind of going down that line of thought. But the facts of the situation fit the outcome regardless, because no other real explanation can explain why the so-called Ukrainian offensive has just continued to grind itself on these Russian defensive positions. The only logical conclusion that you can come away with is either the Ukrainian leadership is so drastically inept that they believe they are making good progress, or they just intend to wear down their own forces to nothing on purpose. There's really no other way to describe it. This last week, Tucker Carlson did an interview with Colonel Douglas Macgregor, which was fantastic. I posted links to it on Gab, and Pete posted it over on the WRSA mothership page, the website. Go watch that interview after this video. It is the most honest and real assessment that we are getting from Western sources of the war, period. Okay? Nobody else in the West is saying this. Now, that said, I don't agree completely with everything that the colonel says, but he is almost completely on track with what we see when we watch these videos directly from the front. The videos that are posted by both sides of the conflict, by the way. It's fantastic stuff. Go watch it. I will say that over the last 24 hours, Ukraine has made some limited progress in one sector of the Russian defenses, and this is confirmed by geolocating videos that the Russians have posted themselves. Ukraine has broken through the second line of defenses. However, they have failed to reach a consolidation point, at least as when I'm putting this show together. I haven't got the latest updates this morning or today, but as of yesterday, late last night, I'm not aware that they've been able to really exploit this breakthrough yet. So it's possible this could somehow, turn the tide of the war and displace this large Russian position, just unhinge this defensive position. Anything's possible, I guess, but it's just not likely. It's more likely that the Russians will counterattack and push them back over the next 24 hours. We'll have to see. But I still maintain that the Ukrainians are just grinding themselves to mush, and that this is just a limited local success. Now, something else that they've done is an attack was launched on a Russian airbase by drones from the direction of Estonia, and it looks very much like those drones were launched from Estonia, which is a Baltic country, a different country. And this has the danger of opening up this war, because those are NATO countries, okay, or NATO allies at least. It has the danger of spreading this into a greater conflict. And I saw a lot of people, making those indications and saying, "Oh my gosh, this is going to result in a nuclear conflict." Something like that very well could grow out of it, but something to be very, very careful of is, just because it came from Estonia doesn't mean it was the Estonians. It doesn't mean that it was government sanctioned. Drones are easy to transport, and the Ukrainians are capable of moving there and launching them in an effort to expand that conflict. So just be aware of that. Now, speaking of Tucker Carlson, let's get to the main point of the show, and that is his interview with Victor Orban that he posted on his X account. Now, again, I urge you to go watch this video after you watch this one. It's fantastic. It's probably one of the best interviews that I have seen Tucker Carlson give of a world leader. What I want you to do is to do a little Google search for mainstream media articles about Victor Orban, and I want you to compare and contrast those articles with this interview. And I'm using this interview very specifically because I think it's just emblematic of the state of Western media today. And I'll post a screenshot of the headlines from some of those that I did. I just pulled up what I could find in a very quick little search. Our mainstream media calls him, a right-wing radical. They call him a racist, that he is Putin's ally and that he has this dark agenda. Some of them call him a fascist. And this is a fellow NATO country, a NATO ally, a leader that we should be at least publicly neutral on, Carlson asked Orban in this interview about this, and he very clearly explains that, his country has a history with Russia, and it's not a good one. He says that if Hungarians believed that he was Putin's ally, then he wouldn't have been elected. It just wouldn't fly in Hungary. They don't go for that. And Orban is asked by Tucker why he thinks he's painted so negatively by Western press, and he explains that it's because Hungary is different than the rest of Western Europe. Hungary still maintains that there is something greater than the self. In Western countries, worship of the self has become so ingrained that anyone who speaks counter to that and goes beyond, just suggesting that, well, you do some good deeds for other people. Anything beyond that is looked upon as this radical attack on freedom and anti-liberty. That's powerful stuff, folks, because he's so spot on. And I'm a freedom advocate and a liberty advocate. I don't go that far. I don't go to the point where I'm so obsessed with self. But it's no wonder he's hated. And just so you know how much he's hated by our leaders, the U.S. spent millions of dollars during the Hungary elections to support his opponents and to try to defeat him in the election. When he was elected anyway. And they alleged that there were irregularities with the election. And again, this is a NATO ally. In other words, it's totally okay for the administration of Joe Biden to spend millions of tax dollars influencing and interfering with a foreign election to unseat a fellow NATO ally leader, and then question their election when it doesn't work out for them the way they thought it was going to. But if you spend money here and question our election, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you're guilty of sedition, and you're a traitor. Foreign money spent by other countries to influence our election is illegal. It's not something that we put up with. But we're doing this to a European nation that is a tacit ally of ours. That's why I want you to go watch this video and take it all in, because I think the contrast is so radically different from the picture painted in the mainstream media. The reality of the matter is that Orban, of course, is none of the things that our media says he is. He is a rational and logical leader for his people. He cares about the people of Hungary, at least as much as any politician does. They're politicians, okay? But it looks, at least on the surface, at least it appears that he wants policies in place that are for the betterment of his people. He is the president of Hungary, not the world, not some other country. So he's looking out for his people. And the fact is that he is opposed by the deep state because he will not allow his country to be destroyed. He will not allow mass, unchecked immigration of people from third world countries into Hungary, both because he knows that the people of Hungary are opposed to that, and because he knows that the true goal of that is to replace the native population with a vast underclass polyglot of racial groups that can be controlled by the deep state. Orban can see this, and other leaders can see this as well. That's why you have to be extremely cautious with who you pick as a leader, because the deep state is not affiliated with a party. It has people on all sides of the political fight. It's more than willing to give a little bit to get a lot. It has no principles beyond its power and the enslavement of humanity forever. see the current Prime Minister of Italy as an example of that. She ran on a platform of being anti-immigration, and now she's putting policies in place that allow for more immigration. Now, I'm not sure that people really understand the gravity of what we are facing. I think some people can feel this and they know that it is an existential fight, but they place their specific faith on the surface of it, and generally that's as deep as they go. In other words, they look at it from the standpoint or the context of their religious doctrine, their religious beliefs, and say, well, it's a fight of good against evil, and that's really as deep as they go. But this is way beyond that. It's far more dark and dangerous and evil than I think any religious text or doctrine really explains or really lays out for people. Because what I see is something that is on par with the movie The Matrix, not because of AI or robots. Forget that part of it. The part of it where people are trapped in a virtual existence forever, and there's no escaping it. There's no freedom, and not only that, there's no thought of freedom. There's not even a glimmer of it because it just simply doesn't exist. It can't be thought of. The very concept of freedom will go away. It's far worse than anything Orwell has ever imagined. And people like Victor Orban stand in opposition to that, even if they don't know it. I can't recall reading more in-depth articles or speeches that he's given to say that I really know, what he believes. So for now, I just have to assume that he understands the surface of things, obviously, and that shallow layer below the surface that people kind of know is there. That's the truth, even though the truth is far deeper. But he at least understands that shallow layer. And knowing that he stands in opposition of that, in opposition of what's playing out before us, he still understands enough to know that it's a dangerous place to be. He says this in the interview. He says it's dangerous to be in opposition to the U.S. And he is 100% correct there. Just kind of staying on that surface here, not taking into account that really deep stuff. Why would anyone in the world trust the word of the United States? Why? What good does it bring them? What benefit does it bring them? Perhaps it brings them a temporary advantage or a reprieve from whatever situation that they are in. But you have to know that it's only temporary. It's only as good as the wind's blowing in the same direction as you're going. When the winds change, the U.S. will back out and leave you hanging to face the wrath. That's the minimum, and that's assuming you're not an embarrassment to them. The worst case is you get blown up by a drone with your family. Now, this is what our allies know about us. This is what our allies think about us, that it's dangerous to cross us, to go against whatever whim that the current administration has. The message that has been sent out to the world since 2016, at least, is that the elected president of the U.S. and the elected members of Congress in the U.S. are not in control of this country. They do not drive or control our foreign policy. They do not drive or control economic policy. And they do not drive and control the military, industrial, and intelligence complex in this country. That's the message to everyone in the world, including the people that are supposed to be our friends. Now, in this interview, Carlson asked Orban about the attack on the Nord Stream pipeline. And Orban spells this out as clear as he can be and still be diplomatic. Everyone knows that the U.S. destroyed that pipeline. Again, we did this to our ally, Germany. We put a crushing blow on the economic engine of Germany. In any other time, that is an act of war. Had this occurred, for example, 1930, this would have kicked off World War II. It's that serious. Now, to me, this and many other things just signal that we're moving into the later phases of this worldwide conflict. And we're no doubt fighting another world war right now. It's just not a declared one. It's a true fifth generation war, a hyper war that is being fought out on every front, including the spiritual front, I might add. I have no doubt that these fires that we are seeing are part of that war. The mass media manipulation that's going on around that, as well as, the conflict in Ukraine is yet another front. That's more of the dynamic front of that, the kinetic front of it. And when Carlson did his interview with Colonel McGregor, there was a debunking video put out a few days later by some clown on YouTube. And I could not get past about, 6 or 8 minutes of that video, because it was obvious that the guy was a Western diplomatic propaganda outlet. And what I find more disgusting was the comments below the video. And setting aside, there's going to obviously be bots, commentators there. The sheer number of people parroting the mainstream lines tells me that the propaganda is working, at least on that front. More evidence of that fifth generation war. That war is carried out not only against your enemies and your allies, but it's carried out against your own people as well. It's a sad state of things, I have to tell you. But everything is not lost. I believe more and more that people are waking up to the reality of this, and they're pulling themselves out of the fog. The youngsters are leading the way here, and they're going to drag as many people with them as they can, I think. Now, what I can say to you is to keep hitting back. Make your stand, no matter how small it is, because every stand is a stand. Every pushback is another obstacle. When you have like a tire rolling down the road, every single little grain of sand, every little rock adds up to the overall friction that is at play on that tire. If we add up enough, we degrade the performance enough that it doesn't take as significant an overall object or obstacle to stop that tire rolling completely. So keep at it. Go watch those videos. That's all I got time for today. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.